I would like to now introduce you to all our speakers for today. We have with us Meghna Hegde. She is a senior program officer, monitoring evaluation at Shantila Mutta Foundation, Pune. She uses data to find issues and gaps in the program and present the stakeholders with innovative and contextual solutions. She has over 6 years of experience in varied fields like public policy research, rural development planning, program management, stakeholder management, and monitoring evaluation of large-scale programs. We also have with us Anshuman Vardhan, a chartered accountant with 18 years of work experience in financial management in areas of budgeting, audit, monitoring, review, and training. He has worked with the following social cause verticals: HIV, AIDS, health, infrastructure, small and medium enterprises, women and child development, rural water supply, disaster management, poverty alleviation. His experience in working with grassroots level NPOs across India in areas of budgeting, proposal development, auditing, setting up internal control systems, grant management. Let us now welcome Meghna and Anshuman to lead the session.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming today and joining us and giving us an hour of your day's time. Before we start, I just want to let you know that we will be talking more about the really basics of annual report writing for any NGO today. So you need to realize that we don't have enough time to really concentrate on one part of the report and talk more about it. Rather, we would want to get you a basic idea of where to start, how to do it while you're doing it, what to avoid, how to structure it properly, how to make it visually appealing for your stakeholders, and what all to include, and all the budget, financial, and audit related topics are going to be covered by Anshuman. I will be talking more about the language of it, the design of it, and stuff like that. And the second part would be completely taken by Anshuman regarding the financial aspect of it. So I would request Adelina to please share the screen. Yeah. Why I told you this was because then you could probably direct your questions accordingly and know that today is all about understanding what an annual report is and understanding how to go about it rather than nitpicking each and every element of it. Okay. So annual report writing for NGOs. We will be looking today at what an annual report actually means. Why is it important for an NGO or an NPO? How do you structure your report? What checklist should you have in your mind before you start writing the report? What are the design principles that are being followed not only in India but internationally as well? And what are the things that you should completely avoid putting in your annual report? So these are just basic guidelines. There can be a lot more that can be added to it. You can, once you get an understanding of the basic points, you could always explore more on your own and understand in depth about report writing. But this is just to start off your journey towards annual report writing. Yeah, next slide, please. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah. So an annual report actually is one of the best ways for you to communicate your nonprofit's wins each year. What have you achieved? Right. And this not only helps keep your current donors informed, it can also draw out new donors, like donors who aren't really convinced about investing yet, but once they look at your annual report, they might feel, oh, I know, I kind of relate to this, so probably I should completely invest in this cause. It is completely voluntary information that your organization and NGO would be making it available for public viewing. So everybody is going to be able to read your annual report, right? It also acts as a marketing tool for your organization. So it talks more about what you're doing, what have you achieved, and it in a way improves your credibility, and you can attract attention to the work that you're doing. So all of this goes into an annual report. the sections and contents within an annual report for an NGO are slightly different to how a corporate annual report would look like. We don't want to go too much into it, but today is basically about how do we write an annual report for an NGO. The audited account section is one of the most crucial part of the report, and which Anshuman would be talking about later, but that is one of the most important part of the annual report. So the definition is on screen for you, and how can the annual report be used? It can be used by the NGO to keep the stakeholders informed, show impact, impress existing donors and funders, attract new donors and funders, and to showcase their success to everyone. Yeah, next slide. Why is an annual report important for an NGO? So you might have a basic idea of why is it important, but let us just quickly understand what are actually the reasons why it is important. Everything leads to credibility, right? Everything has to focus on the credibility of your organization, and it can only be achieved through transparency, through completely by letting people know what is it that is going on in your organization, because it's an NGO, it runs on grants and funds, so people need to know, what are you doing, and you claim that you're doing good for the society, then how are you doing it, what are your programs looking like, where did you start, where did you end, what were your goals, did you achieve it, did you not? So people are going to be really critical about what you're doing, especially because you're an NGO. The spotlight is going to be on you. So how do you improve this credibility? How do you say that, yes, I have achieved, or maybe I am on the way to achieving, or maybe I've not really have been successful, but I'm working towards it. So you need to communicate this really, really strongly to all your stakeholders, right? Especially your donors. So that is why the annual report is really important. So we have really a small pool of donors. If you look at it, we don't have a lot of players in this field who come with a lot of finance, who come with a lot of CSR. They're very limited, and the NGOs are huge. The ratio is very skewed. So the more accountable and the more transparent you are towards about your organization, that's how beneficial it is going to be for you to get those funds. Okay. You have to be transparent about the activities at every level, and you have to basically share it with a wide audience, and you have to share it with all the stakeholders. You have to show how you're contributing to the community, demonstrate accomplishments, and also how you have what your journey has been. Historical progress is nothing but where were you and where have you reached. So all of this amounts to credibility, improving your credibility. That is really important. Like I'm highlighting that word. And to top it all, it is mandatory according to the Companies Act, and if I'm not wrong, there is Societies Act as well. I cross-checked with Anshuman about this. So it's legally binding for you to give out an annual report along with all of your financials and your audits. So that is why you have to do it. It is a very good practice to do it as well. So yeah, so next slide is the structure of an annual report. Okay. Okay. So there are 12 things on the screen that you can see right now. You don't have to write it all down. They'll be sharing the slide with you. So don't go through, don't put yourself through all of that. Rather understand why we are talking about all of this, right? So whatever you're seeing on the screen right now are traditionally what an annual report is supposed to have. That's how a lot of reports are structured. But deciding what information to include in your organization's annual report is the first step to creating an annual report. You have to first make sure that you know what is the information that you want to put and what is the information that you want to kind of sift away. It is important to understand the basic components of a report. That's why the list has been given. But the trick is to be as to the point as possible. You have to engage in clear and concise writing. You can't you know in colleges they would give you more marks for writing more pages of answers. You can't do that here. You have to be as precise and as concise and as to the point as possible, because nobody really has the time to read your annual report. Nobody actually has the time to read your annual report, right? So yeah, so I'll just quickly go through all the contents, right? Front cover, it has to be really nice and eye catching, and it has to look very professional. There can be like a letter from the executive director, founder, board president, your acknowledgements, your executive summary. Your executive summary is really important. You have to focus in your executive summary on who, what, when, where, and why. 5 things: who, what, when, where, and why. Okay. You have to highlight the highlights of the document. You have to be as precise as possible. You have to cut your executive summary short. Every sentence should either reveal the character of the report or advance the action points of the report. They cannot be unnecessary, ranting in the executive summary. And please do not copy paste your work from the main body in your executive summary. Paraphrase everything. And again, make it as crisp and short as possible. That is how your executive summary has to be, because most probably people are only reading that. People are only reading, they don't probably have the time to even go through 10 pages. They just want to know what exactly is happening, and they look at the executive summary and they should get an idea of what you're talking about, right? So my suggestion would be to use an inverted pyramid structure. So an inverted pyramid structure is basically talking to you, highlighting the most important information in the beginning. It is presented first, and that is followed by supporting details and background information. So if you Google inverted pyramid structure, you will get a lot of resources on it, but that can be a really good way to write your executive summary, because that will really bring out why what all have you included in the report in the first place. Moving on, I spent a little time on it because it was really important, right? Moving on, we go on to mission statement, history of the organization, what are your philosophy and beliefs, what are your statistics and profiles of your beneficiaries, how many people have you covered, how many people do you reach, what are your success stories, if you've gone on the field and interviewed a few people and asked them, how has our program really impacted you, and you have some really out of the box story about somebody whose life has completely transformed. Then you have to put it in your annual report, right? Because people would want to relate to it. That personal kind of connect is really important. Then you go to your highlights of your accomplishments. What change have you been able to bring about? Then the financial statements and awards, grants, donations. So this is just a generic structure. You can, depending on what is important for you and what is what your priority is, who you are going to target, this can change or move up and down a bit. That it is flexible that way. That's not an issue. So but this is usually what people follow. Okay, next slide please. Yeah, so after all of that, what has to be highlighted? You see 12 things, but what do you highlight? Am I audible to everybody, because everything seems to be frozen to me?
Yes, yeah, you're audible, Meghna.
Okay, thanks. What has to be highlighted out of all of that? That cannot be cut out in any way. You have to put it right. Your accomplishments, because that is why you're writing the annual report in the first place, to flaunt your accomplishments, right? Your success stories. Supporters want to hear powerful stories, right? They want to hear stories about the impact of your work. You have to feature people who have been impacted by your cause, and you have to let those voices tell your story. Um, get away from business writing. Don't put in a lot of jargons. Don't put in a lot of technical terms. Get as personal as you can be. Make it a personal piece that can appeal to a lot of people. Include profiles, testimonials, anecdotes that can help demonstrate impact, because impact is not always numbers, right? Sometimes it can't be measured. It is very qualitative. So success stories, what they do is they help you tell that story. They help you measure that impact qualitatively, because maybe you don't have a maybe you don't have uh, a goal that can be measured, an indicator that can be measured in terms of percentage increase, maybe that's how your program is. Then what do you do? Then you talk to your beneficiaries, then you tell their stories. That is why success stories is really important. Moving on to financials, your financials should tell a story too. And that means that they should be easy to understand. You can't give like Excel sheets in your this thing, right? In your report, right? So that's all I'm touching about financials. I'm not taking much time on that. Acknowledgements is because you have to give your community of supporters the sense that you embrace them as your partners in this cause, in this journey, right? You can't leave them out. You have to tell people that these are the people included in our journey and they've helped us immensely. That is why acknowledgements. And a call to action is something that you can put, or you don't have to put, depending on the kind of an organization that you are. If you're a really tiny organization and you need funds, you need people to come and donate actively, then that can be your call to action. While the readers are not actually expecting a call to action, it is a good way to say it's a good opportunity for your organization. And if the annual report ends up inspiring somebody and they want to donate or they want to chip in something, they can do that. So, but for that, you need to put in a call to action. There will be organizations that are self-sufficient, or they already have a funder or a donor at a large scale and they don't need a call to action. So this is something that you can or cannot put. Don't have to put. Yeah. Next slide, please. So what is the difference between a traditional annual report structure and a modern annual report structure today? So the first thing that comes to my mind is the length of it. People have been asking about how many pages. We can take those questions in the end, but you just have to remember that you can't stretch it. You can't have hundreds of pages, because people really don't have the time, and you can't give lists and lists of things to talk about. So if you see the comparison on your screen right now, instead of giving a full list of what you did last year, focus on the changes you brought. So what you're basically doing is you're taking in all the data that you want to share with the people, and you are analyzing it. You are mulching over it. You are kind of coming out with a story, right? So you don't want to tell people, oh, मैंने ऐसे किया, मैंने ये भी किया, मैंने वो भी किया, और फिर what we did, we kind of did this big workshop, and people don't want to know that. What people want to know is what are the changes that happened because of this. So probably if you would have spent like 4 or 5 pages of what all you did, you can do it in a paragraph of what changes you brought. That's how you cut down your report. right? That's how you kind of focus on the good things, now on the interesting things, so that the person who's reading the report doesn't sleep off, right? Then instead of making full financial statements, you maybe give like a glimpse of what you've done. Anshuman will be able to help you about it later. Don't give them a long list of donors, don't give them a long executive letter, because donors are not again going to be looking at that, or even the stakeholders or the beneficiaries, they're not really interested in a long list of who all have 5,000 kisne diya 10,000. Nobody wants to know that, right? So make the donors feel that they belong also. So instead of just giving a list maybe and how much they've donated, probably give a personal connect with something that can that the donors can also personally connect with. They'll also feel nice ki, oh, they've written something good about us. Maybe an incident where which you have overcome because of the donor's help. Maybe you were in a rut and the donor came in at the right time, which helped you reach the problem and solve the problem at the right time. Maybe something like that. Be innovative. And the entire report should be a personal message. It has to, you have to have a clear goal and a clear aim of what you want to talk about. It can't be unattached. It has to weave into a good story throughout, right? So make sure that things are not out of place. They have to be there has to be a synergy between all the sections that you write. So that is important. You don't make it too long. Just be innovative and pick and choose what you want to write about. So that with that we come to an end about the structure of an annual report. Yeah. So next slide, please. The checklist. This is very important. These are some really practical things that you need to keep in mind, and this might need a lot of planning. This might need a lot of pre-planning to be done. So say I want to publish an annual report by the end of this year. So I start planning for it today itself. I start gathering for resources and I start making a checklist in my mind today itself. You can't like start a month before giving out an annual report. That's not how it works. You have to consider your audience. You have to make sure that you know who all will be reading your report, right? And everybody has to some way or the other connect with it. Some way. The donors probably will be able to look at your finances and say, oh, they've made a good use of the resources. Maybe somebody who wants to implement that program in their area, maybe a government executive is reading the report and says, okay, they've done a good job in this district, maybe I should invite them over. So you have to be very mindful of the audience that is going to read your report, right? Maybe make a list and maybe write down points about what is it that each of this audience will be looking for in your report. Maybe depending on the program, it's going to differ. So I can't tell you ki they will be looking at only this or only that. Depending on your program, that is going to be completely different, right? So I'm just giving you pointers to remember. Who are the key people who are involved in writing the report? So if you are the person who's going to write the report, understand what your own strengths and weaknesses are. If you are good at writing a concise report, but you are not very good at graphics that you need to make the report visually more alluring, then you might need help. You can't just say, no, I am only going to do it. You need help. Annual report is usually, at least up till now, I have had 3 to 4 people helping me out. Somebody's helping me with the graphics, somebody's helping me with the editing. Some senior person is, going through the report and saying, no, we don't need this, we don't need that. And so you need a couple of people to support you, and you need to know who those people are so that they are included in this loop. They are included in understanding what is it that is going to go into this report, in what data is going to go in the report throughout the year, what are we going to pick and choose, right? So they have to be in the loop. And the next thing is what the content will be. So you have to be very sure what the running theme of the report is going to be. You can't go haywire. You have to stick to that theme in your report, and you have to decide on it कि यही है, इसके अलावा I am not going to do anything else. What is the key objective to be highlighted? Say you've achieved something really great, okay, and there have been a couple of failures also. So you are not going to talk about those failures a lot, na? You're going to talk about something that you have achieved. So highlight that. Highlight कि ये हुआ है, and talk nicely about it. And then somewhere probably you will say that we are working on these things as well. But this is a great achievement for us. With the resources that we had, we did a great. We tried our best, something like that. What are your best stories to tell? Like I said, success stories in the earlier slide. So you need to have like a library of sorts, where you know putting in all of those success stories. Wherever you're going on the field and talking to people, you find a success story, you take it and put it in a say in a word file somewhere on the drive. So every time throughout the year, you have to start keeping these resources aside. Pictures. I don't know if I put it in. No, I'm not put it in the slide. But pictures of programs. Everywhere you go, everywhere you visit, if you don't have a particular person with a DSLR in his hand who is taking pictures of your program, do that yourself. At least have a good phone camera with a good megapixel or good quality, whatever it is technically. Just take pictures and keep it in a separate folder in your drive, which you can use to put it in your annual report later. Or you can have like a photographer or a person with a camera come with you and take a scope of the program and have pictures, whatever suits your needs. And the content will be major achievements also. So yeah, another main thing is to decide how will it be distributed. Your annual report, this is a very important part of the checklist. How will you distribute it? How will you pass it forward? Either you can pass it online through an email, or you can say put it on your website, or you can print it and you can give physical copies to people, right? I know it is really difficult now to give physical copies to people, so you might want to focus more on the online version of it. So an online version again cannot be, sorry for that. An online version cannot be something that is more than 25 MB if you want to send it through email, because then it goes as an attachment. So you have to be very mindful of these things also. What is the size of it? Do you want it to be a web PDF? So these things will depend on how you are targeting your people, right? This is important. And the last point is, say your board meeting is coming up or your annual meet is coming up. That will be a great time to release your annual report. You have to coincide these dates with your annual report release date, because your board of your board members, your trust members, or your other stakeholders will be coming for this annual meet. That's when your annual report can be showcased, and you can say this is our report and this is what we'll be talking about. So it just makes your life easier, because if it coincides, then you don't have to go through extra mehnat of doing the whole thing, reinventing the wheel again. So make sure that it coincides. What else? Did I leave anything out? Yeah, so also if you need to outsource some part of it, you can start looking at vendors. When I was talking about key people involved in writing the report, if you don't have the manpower for it, if you don't have the expertise for it, probably you're still a small team, then you can outsource the graphics of it, or maybe you can outsource it for say editing. Make sure that your report is free of any errors. Maybe you're not so good with language, maybe you're very good with Hindi but not very good at English. Maybe you're very good at English but your stakeholders want something in Hindi, so then you might have to hire a translator. So these kind of resources also you have to make sure that you have to finish your report. It all depends on your audience. Again, you have to know your audience who will be reading this report. So yeah, moving on. Basic design principles. There's not much to discuss about it. It is what it is. You have to use simple and clear design. Don't clutter it. Don't try to bring out the inner Picasso. Don't do all of that. Just keep it simple, keep it clean, keep it soothing to the eyes and easy to understand, right? Easy to comprehend, straightforward sentences. Don't get into complex sentences. Don't write 4-5 line sentences, because the person is going to get probably lost in, oh God, what is this sentence actually trying to talk about? And it is all about communication, right? They need to know what you're talking about. So just keep it simple sentences. Use pictures, graphs, infographics wherever possible. Yeah, write as less as possible. Put as much infographics and pictures as possible to put your message across. You have to enhance, appeal, reinforce content. So you have to enhance it, as in through pictures and graphs. You have to make it look appealing, and you have to reinforce the content. Like, it has to create an impact in the reader's mind. Maybe words can't do it, maybe pictures and graphs can do it sometimes. So you have to make sure that is happening. Break up big paragraphs in short paragraphs and bullet points. Sometimes, even for me, I don't know, I can't talk for the general audience, but for me, when I see a long paragraph, I actually think twice about, do I want to get into this? Maybe not. So what you can do is you can cut short those paragraphs, put it in bullet points, and the person will be it'll be easier to go through, like glance through the whole thing. Keep plenty of margin, enough line spacing and white spaces. Don't make it cluttered. Again, choose font type and font size carefully to make it readable. No fancy fonts, no cursive fonts and all. People need to understand what they're writing. That might look very beautiful to you, but that is not a norm. So mostly Arial type, size 11 or 12, should be good. That's ideally what we use. And a line spacing of 1.15 or 1.5. If you don't have a lot of content, then a line spacing of 1.5 is also good. Don't change font type. No, don't change font types for headings, subheadings. Don't do that. एक ही type का font पूरे report में. You have to make sure. Keep only up to 2 or maximum 3 levels of headings and subheadings. So probably you have a heading of 0.1, you have a subheading of 1A, and then you have a subheading of 1A Roman numeral 1. बस उतना ही, उसके नीचे और मत जाओ. Don't go into again bullet points below that, because then your content page, your list of contents in the beginning, that won't look good. If you have a lot of levels, when you generate your contents page, it will look very, very bad. It won't look aligned. So keep only 3 level headings. Headings and subheadings, sorry. Use italics for indic fonts, or to show paraphrase text. So indic font is what font? Hindi, Marathi, Kannada, Telugu, Bengali, whatever, whichever area you are working in. If you're writing a report in English, but you have something in a different language, in a language other than English, then you can use italics for that. Or if there is somebody who has, you know, said a certain talked about something, and you have paraphrased it, you have put it in a double inverted commas, then you can put it in italics as well. Use footnotes. Footnotes are very important. Give them context, tell them where you read it, tell them which source you read it from. Also put it in the reference section in the end, but before that you can put just a small footnote there itself. If you don't know how to put a footnote, YouTube it. There'll be tons of tutorials how to do it, right? Avoid using too many font colors. Stick to a color theme. Okay, so if you look at my slide is mostly yellow and black. I have not used pink, purple, blah blah blah, all of that. So don't go on a coloring spree like a 5-year-old. Just stick to a font color, stick to a theme color, and just do that, because you need to look professional. But if your entire report is about children and how they have, you know, then maybe you can show their pictures and, you know, you make it colorful. Maybe that is a demand of your report, then you can do it. But if you want to be professional, then just avoid font colors and avoid different colors in your report. A lot of colors, like you can stick to a theme. Okay, next slide. This is important. This is important. How? This is important because you need to know exactly how to write your report. We've talked about what all to include, blah blah blah, but how do you write your report? The first point is opening a report. So you've done with your executive summary and you want to open your report now. You want to talk about, say, you open it with a quote, or you open it with a saying, or you open it with a statistic. You know, come up with an innovative idea to open your report. The first 5 seconds of somebody reading your report is very important. If that person, if you can catch that person's attention in those 5 seconds, great, nothing like it, then that person will be invested. So don't make it seem like a Wikipedia page. In Maharashtra, so I'm from Pune, so I'll take that example. Okay, in Maharashtra, Pune is situated here, and you know there are so many people there. So there's a population of this much, geographical area of that much, and okay, your program is in Pune city, but you don't want to, you know, such may don't make it like a Wikipedia page about Pune. Start with something witty, start with something that grasps your attention. Second, revise, edit, revise again. Keep revising your report. Your editing is not done when there's nothing left to add. Your editing is done when there is nothing left to delete. Keep this in your mind. You have to make sure कि इससे ज़्यादा और मैं delete ही नहीं कर सकता या कर सकती. I can't take out anything else. Now your report is done. Don't think about what more can I add. Always think about what more can I delete. Keep it concise, keep it short, right? Third, very, very important, reframe negative as positive. That means words like lacking, inadequate, insufficient, deficient, scarce, unavailable. Don't do that. It's such a sob story to hear then that, you know, हमारे पास कुछ था ही नहीं, फिर भी हमने ये किया. Don't do. Nobody wants to hear that, right? What people want to know is how you turned things around. So maybe you can. So maybe you don't have funds, and you want to tell donors that we don't have funds. So instead of writing, we have. There is inadequacy of funds, there we have inadequate efficient resources. Maybe you can write something like with adequate funds we can bridge the gap and have sufficient resources for estimated growth. That is a much that is a more positive way of putting forth your issues than cribbing about it, right? The fourth point is don't use superfluous transition words. What are superfluous transition words? Reportedly, nonetheless, furthermore, as mentioned above, notably, besides, like these words are not adding to anything. If you know, when you read a sentence and it starts with reportedly or furthermore, nonetheless, you know that even if you remove that word, that sentence is going to make the exact same sense that it will with the word. So it doesn't matter. So don't put in these a lot of these superfluous words that will show the reader that isko और कुछ probably सूझा नहीं, इसने ये डाल दिया. So don't do that. Think about what you're writing, right? And avoid using etc. Yes. Exams में हमको बहुत science students and art students they know this. 10 में से 3 ही चीज याद है तो डाल के etc डाल दो. That doesn't work here, okay? Because people don't want to guess about what you're doing. So we worked in Pune, Mumbai, Nagpur, etc. अरे etc मतलब और कहाँ पे काम किया? They don't want to guess, right? So until and unless it's absolutely crucial for you to put etc, don't put etc. And even if you do, put it in parentheses. Parentheses is those brackets. Put it in that key as an example, right? Sixth one is the acronym rule. So this is the rule about using acronyms. If you don't know it, whenever you are introducing an acronym, you have to write the entire term. Then you use the acronym after the term. And then you start using the acronym wherever you want to. You use the acronym only if in the coming text it is going to be used a lot, right? If कैसे बताऊं? If FAQ, ठीक है, FAQ के बारे में कुछ लिखना है और frequently asked questions is FAQ, ऐसे तुमने बताया है, and after that you have to use that term FAQ for 7-8 times, then you can use FAQ everywhere. If you are using it only once, then don't make an acronym out of it. If you're using it only once or twice in the entire document, do not make an acronym out of it, because people sometimes don't know what that acronym means, right? First rule. Second rule, you've introduced that acronym, okay? And over the next 5 pages, 5 is the minimum. Over the next 5 pages, you have not used that acronym. And then when you have to reuse it, you have to reintroduce the term again. So basically, frequently asked question, 5 page tak I have not used again, right? After the 5th page, the 6th page, I want to again use frequently asked question. Then you can't start with FAQ. You have to again say frequently asked question in bracket FAQ and then start using it. Because people have forgotten what that acronym means, right? Because 5 pages they're reading about something completely different. So this is very important. These are very small things, but these are things that irritate people a lot, and you don't want to do that in your annual report. The 7th and the most important thing is tense and voice. A lot of people say passive voice use mat karo report mein, but passive voice is something that you can use very effectively in the methodology section. A place was visited for collecting this kind of data. Now here they don't want to know who went and collected that data, right? So here passive tense completely works in your methodology, in your data collection section. After that, you can start using the active voice, right? So passive voice is okay to use, but only in methodology section where you have already done some things and you want to talk about it. As for the tense, you usually go with present perfect tense mostly. So instead of saying, I hope people are good with the tenses and voices, because now I don't want to go with what a present perfect tense is. So I'll give you an example for the present perfect tense. So you want to say this project, this project will map economic and political drivers. Okay, so this is in the future. right? This project will be mapping or this project will map. So what that shows is that is something under pipeline. You have not already started doing it, or what? Why are you putting it in the annual report then? Then probably you want to phrase it as this project maps economic and political drivers. So it's something that it's already doing, that you've already undertaken it, and the project is already doing it, and things are already moving forward, and that's how the confidence will be instilled. So these verbs that you use, these verbs are very important. They have to be actionable verbs, they have to be impactful verbs, very strong verbs, verbs verbs that show that you are really doing something good with the program. Okay, so these are the small writing guidelines, but they have to be applied throughout. Okay, so next slide. Next slide. Things to avoid. Too much text, we've covered that. Don't put too much text. Too much sentiment, nahi. Don't put a sob story. हमारे पास पैसे नहीं थे, बच्चे कितने गरीब थे, लेकिन फिर भी हमने ये किया, फिर उसकी माँ मर गई. Don't do all of that, please. This is, nobody wants to read that. Just be as, make it personal but not very sentimental. We don't want to go full Bollywood on them. Don't use too much jargon. Don't use too much technical words. People might not understand it, but also don't think that the reader is dumb also. कि तुम economics पे paper लिख रहे हो and then you're explaining what GDP is, just doesn't make sense, because the reader might already know. So understand, again, audience पे आता है, depends on who your audience is. You can decide what you want to include and what you don't want to include. Don't leave it with no clear call to action. I think that might be confusing to people. No clear call to action is something that you have to avoid, which means there has to be a clear call to action. The people need to know कि ये पढ़ने के बाद मैं करना क्या है, what should I do after this, or what am I expected to do after this, depending on if you want them to do something, or if it's not, then you can leave it out. Don't put too much focus on failures and mistakes. I have actually recently read something where their logic was to be transparent, but their failures list was so big that it overshadowed their accomplishments. They might have accomplished really good things, but there are only 2 accomplishments and 10 failures. So what did you do in this year? Why are you highlighting this? At least put it in a way that people think, oh, maybe you've reached half the midpoint and you have still ways to go and you have, plans for it. At least write it that way. Ki hum kar rahe hain, we are doing it and these are our obstacles. We are trying really hard. If you want to show it, it's a good idea. It's a good idea to show your failures, but write it properly, structure it properly. Don't focus on them. Just passing by में लिख दो कि हाँ problem है लेकिन we are managing it. Too much information on inner workings of the NGO. Don't give that in the report. हमने इस साल रंगोली कंपटीशन किया, हमने इस साल सबने मिलके स्किल डेवलपमेंट के लिए ये कोर्स किया, we did. So these are all your inner workings of the NGO. Who joined, who left, unless your CEO has changed and you want to tell that to your donors, that is a big impactful inner working of the NGO, right? Unless that has happened, maybe then there is no need of talking about anything else. Right? And too much focus on future activities. That means that you have nothing to show. If you're writing too much on, we are going to do this, and the whole report is about that, that means there is nothing that has happened already. You're only talking about future stuff. So people who are going to read the report are going to be very smart. So don't avoid these things completely, because it might give a completely different impression to the person who is reading the report. I think that was the last slide for me. Yes. So I hope that you guys have a good understanding of how to write a basic report. And that is all, unfortunately, that we could cover today. Yeah.
I can now welcome Anshuman to lead the workshop.
Yeah, thank you, Atlina. I would like to, a very good evening to everyone present here. And I would like to thank Connect for having me here and giving me an opportunity to, share this with all the participants. And I'd like to continue from where Meghna, she ended with such a wonderful and informative presentation. So I hope the screen is visible to everyone. The topic that I'll be covering today is basically the financial aspects in the annual report. What are the financial aspects that any NGO or NPO should look into covering in the annual report when they write it. The discussion points are mainly we'll be just looking into 4 points, 4 key aspects. First is we'll try to understand that what is the financial aspect of an annual report that we need to cover, what are the aspects that we need to cover. Then we'll understand how we can best present the financial results in an annual report, how we can, what financial statements when we present in an annual report. So what are the financial statements that need to be presented, how they can be presented. And would also look into the key points that we need to remember while while preparing the financial aspect of an annual report. So when we talk about when we say that a financial aspect of an annual report, the financial aspect means basically that annual reports have a section on financial results. So this result section, it's usually, again, it varies from NGO to NGO, but it may not be, the name may not be there, but there is a section which talks about the financial information. So that section has basically 2 parts. One is that in which there is a financial data is presented in form of a narrative and graph. And second is in which the financial statement is presented. So if there is a financial result section, we can have a financial result section in the annual report in which we will have the financial data in the narrative and a graphical structure, and then we will have a financial statements. Now, it is very important for an NPO to understand that when we talk about the annual report and when we are, giving you a list of things that you should put in, it can be very overwhelming for an NPO which has recently started or which doesn't have a lot of, human resource or a lot of resource to work on it. So it is extremely important for an NPO to decide that what financial information they want to disclose in their annual report, right? So if you look into a very big, look into an annual report of a very established or a very big NPO, you will see that they give a lot of graphical analysis, lot of data, which may not be available with a very grassroots level NPO. So the point is that you need to disclose or you need to give that information which is relevant to your particular NPO. And it should also be based on the data that is available. And you also need to know that, what my stakeholders, what the members of NPO want to know, what the donors want to know, what are the other people who would want to see what they want to know in the annual report of that NPO, and what is the legal requirement. So it is extremely important to have a customization when we write this section. Right. So if we just look at any annual report which we can get from the internet of any big NGO, and that can be very overwhelming. So it is important that an NPO sit down and analyzes and decides that what is the information that they have and what they need to tell or what they need to communicate to the public at large. So the framework that I am sharing with you is a broader framework. You can pick and choose from that what you actually want, what is the data available, and what you want to, tell your what story you want to tell the readers. So if the financial results section would usually have a narrative and a graph, and these are the areas which are covered. So source of funds, like from where the NPO is getting the funds, the expenditure distribution, from what is the distribution of expenditure. I'll go into the details of each one. First, I'm just listing it out. Then we can have a sector-wise funds and expenditure information, donor-wise distribution, geographical area, and details of other projects, details of voluntary contribution. So these are some of the areas that can be included when you write the financial results section in the annual report. Now I'll discuss each with, and I'll go into the details. Now in source of fund. Now source of fund means basically you can have grants, you can have donations, and you can have other income. Now you can either have a source of funds as a single, broader point, and within each which you can cover the grants, donations, and other income narrative, and you can give graphs. Or if you can also have grants only as a major head, broader head, and then within that you can just discuss the grants. And if you don't have any grants, if the NPO is only working on donations, then please only include donations. If there are other income, for example, if an NPO is involved in some income generation activities, then that will be getting highlighted. So it's important to showcase the source of funds for that NGO. The exact source will depend on the particular NPO, that is particular NGO activities. Second is the expenditure distribution. Now, when we talk about expenditure distribution, we need to divide the expenditure into two parts. One is the program expenditure and second is the administrative expenditure. Now, within the program expenditure, again, if you have, let's say 3 or 4 funded projects, then you can go details into that. Or if you don't want to do that, then you can just highlight that this is the amount that we have spent on the program part of it, and this is the amount that we have spent on the administrative part of it. It is always, like Meghna also said, that you need to control the narrative part, and you need to have more graphics, more it needs to be attractive in a way that any person who looks, if you simply give a pie chart, then a person will be able to understand that yes, out of the total expenditure distribution of this NGO, X percentage is program expenditure and X percentage is administrative expenditure, which is a very critical information which many donors would be interested into. Next can be, we can discuss about the sector-wise budget and expenditure. So if NPO is working in a lot of sectors, for example, if they're working in health, if they're working in women and child development, if they're working in agriculture, so each sector-wise budget and expenditure narrative can be brought out here. Again, it's important to note that you remember that when I'm talking about discussing, I'm not suggesting that you should have a larger, very huge amount of narrative. Bullet points and graphs are what need to be here. Second is donor-wise distribution. If you have the funds, if the NPO has funds from domestic, foreign donors, then that can be discussed here. If the government and corporate, if there are again certain other distinctions where other donors available, you can always just give an idea to the reader that what kind of donors are funding this particular NGO. Geographical or project area wise financial data. Now this data may or may not be available with grassroots level NGOs because they may not be tracking it, or even for a medium level NGOs they may not be tracking it. Suppose you have projects in 5 districts or maybe 2 states. So many times the financial data is all collated, it's all consolidated. If the data is available, then you can obviously, of course, discuss and tell the any stakeholder, or you can tell them about what is the expenditure that you are what is the fund that you're investing in a particular district or a particular state. Again, you can also have a section on donations, that what individual donations that have come in, the corporate donations that have come in. So that can be more like a gross figure or a yearly trend. You can discuss here what has been the yearly trend, whether it has gone up, whether it has gone down, and things like that. Now, when we have to prepare the financial results section, how to do it actually? What are the steps to do it? So first of all, it is extremely important that you collate the data that is available with you. What data will be available? Data will be basically the financial statements. So you collate maybe the 3, 4, 5 years financial statements that is available with you. And first step is to collate that data. Then second is you enter that data in a spreadsheet. So once you have that data in a spreadsheet, then you analyze it. So see what is the trend. For example, if there is a grant that has come in, let's suppose a grant income is there. So what is the trend in that grant income? So whether it is increased or whether it has decreased, what is my pie chart about the grants and donations telling me, whether how much of that NPO income is coming from grants, how much is coming from donations, how much is coming from other incomes. So you collate the data, then you put it into a spreadsheet, and then you analyze. And once you have the results with you, then only you start writing the narrative, right? So don't start writing the narrative first and then go back into the data. That will lead to wrong conclusions. And once you have this analysis, as Meghna also repeatedly pointed out, that you have to put in, you have to showcase the best that is available with you. So, and if it's, for example, if an NPO last year the grant income or a donation income was higher, but this year that income has gone down because of whatever reasons, maybe because of the COVID pandemic or because of whatever reasons. So then in the narrative section, then you need to discuss and you need to, tell the reader that this is the reason why our donation has gone down or why this grant has gone down, maybe because the term of that grant ended or there might be some other reasons. So whenever you write the narrative, it is important to complete the story, to tell them what has happened financially, why the trend has increased, why the trend has decreased. It is, if it is only left that trend has gone up or trend has gone down, this percentage has changed, then that is an incomplete part of the story. Always try to complete the story, give the reason why that has happened, and then you can always add graphs to that. So this is the steps that you need to follow while preparing the financial results section. So first, in an annual report, like we first saw, that there has to be a, you can have a financial results section, and then there is a financial statements disclosure in the annual report. So every NPO has to get their financial statements audited. So it is a good practice to have a scanned copy of the original signed documents, as a part of your annual report. Now, many NPOs do this. Many NPOs do not do this. There is a lot of, I should say, different practices are there. Many NPOs, the annual report only comprises of the program part of it. The financials do not form part of it. Financials are separate, altogether a separate document. In case of many NPOs, the balance sheet, income, expenditure, and receipt payment account is only included. And in case of certain other NPOs, they also disclose the auditor's report and the schedules. Now, this decision needs to be taken by the particular NPO based on their own requirements. Whatever you do, you need to do it consistently. It is not, you cannot have in 1 year, you can have, if you disclose the full, if you make like all the sets, auditor's report and balance sheet, income, expenditure or part of it. And in the next year, if there is some, observations in the auditor's report, then you cannot say, no, I will not disclose the auditor's report. So whatever practice you adopt, please do it consistently. And whatever it is best practice is to disclose the entire set of audited financial statements along with the auditor's report, along with the annual report. So whenever you send somebody an annual report, that will also include your financial statements, complete set of it. Now, what are the key points to remember? The key points to remember is, like, I think Meghna has covered a larger part of it, so I'm not going to get into the details. In the financial sections, please remember to write in bullet points, give brief analysis, don't write stories. And what are the key takeaways and what are the reasons, what are the challenges that have been faced by that particular NPO? If there are challenges, what are the opportunities that they had? What new things have happened? So that need to be captured in the narrative. And always try to write from a reader's perspective, not from the person who is writing. The person who is writing needs to understand that what a reader wants. Graph, you can have pie chart and you can have a year-wise trend. These are usually the two graphs that are used. Apart from it, it is important that you do a good analysis based on this. Like I said earlier, that once you have the data with you, you do an analysis and then you put on the, when you do that analysis, you can use the graph itself. So if you have a pie chart, please tell the reader that what the pie chart is, have that legends complete and all those things. You should have the color scheme should match with your entire report and it should not go different. So all these points you need to keep. These are the two usually used graphs that are there, pie chart and year-wise trend, that is a bar graph. Again, it is a very important thing that I like to highlight, that many times what I've seen in my personal experience also, that the NGO chief functionaries, they don't, usually they are somehow dependent on the accountant, or, in case of smaller NGOs, they are more program oriented. So they are dependent on their accountant or somebody else to, tell them about the financial statement. So there is many times a disconnect between the program part of it and the financial part of it. And it is also important that whatever narrative and graphs that is prepared, it is prepared from the audited set of financial statements, not from the unaudited statements or from other sources, so that there are no differences when any reader or when any donor is comparing that with their audited financial statement. There should not be any differences which are there. Use consistent currency symbols and units like lakhs and crores. So if you're writing it in lakh, then please continue to do it. So if you're writing it in figures or in crores, then please do it. So don't mix and match those things. That looks a bit hazy. Program narrative and the financial results, they need to tell the same story. Now, what does this mean? For example, if the program narrative is telling that a health camp has been organized by that NGO in particular year, in that particular year for X, XYZ or places. Now, but when we look at the financial results, there is nothing mentioned about that health camp in the entire set of the income, expenditure or recipient payment. So that will, create a doubt in the mind of a donor or a person who's reading that, how come there is no expenditure? So if there is some activity which is being done by an NPO which doesn't involve any expenditure, like for example, it is done by certain volunteers and there was no expenditure, please do mention it very clearly. And whenever you write a program narrative, please ensure that your financials also reflect that kind of data to showcase that yes, this program was there which we had done, and this is the financial results that we had, right? So this is, I think, all from my side. If there are any questions, then I'll be very happy to take them. Thank you. Thanks for having me, and thanks for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Ashima. Thank you so much, Meghna, for facilitating this really insightful webinar.